Hello Soundies. Okay, so this particular session is to do with exporting our sound design as a stereo file to be then inputted into your video software editing platform of choice, finally to be bounced down as the completed movie. So at the moment we've got this sound design that we've been working on for some time. So we need to define the in and out parameters. Now the in point, can you see this little triangle here, this little grey triangle, it's supposed to start at 11111. If you press it, it should say that. And it now doesn't, but there we are. Start 11111, end 1164. So we want to make sure the end point is not much longer than the actual design. So I'm going to minimize my horizontal zoom and actually let's make it as small as possible. There we go. Now it ends there, but can you see the little triangle here is much too far. It's like it'll be rendering a load of silence. So I'm just going to drag that. Can you see what I'm doing there? And I'm just going to drag it to the end of the film there, even though the sound design essentially finishes because we haven't done any title sequence music or anything like that. We want it to, there we go. I've added, there we are, just put it there. So we know that our bounce parameters are for sound to pictures always the very first 111 or 000 here, as we can see. So it's bar 1, track 1, whatever. So right at the very beginning, we set our end point at the very end of the film. Okay, so we go to File. What bouncing down does, it takes this timeline, which can only ever be played on Logic Pro X, and converts it into a format which can be then used in a variety of different media, or indeed played back as sound on its own, which is what we'll be doing when we're doing sound-only projects. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to go to File, and we need to go down to Bounce. Yeah, and then Bounce project or section. The shortcut for this is Command B. So I'm going to go OK. So here we go. We've got our bounce little window, this little breakout window. PCM. That stands for pulse code modulating. I'll say that again. That stands for pulse code modulation. And that means digital audio uncompressed. We can confirm start 11111, end 154. Now we can't move that further up, but we can move this further up, and it's always important to check, because sometimes Logic will do this without you knowing. Will decide that it's going to export from maybe the point that you were last working on. So it's always important that you've got your start is 1111 and your end point is as far as it'll go. Yeah. And PCM. MP3s are fine if you want to do a kind of work in progress for your sound art only project or sound only project, and you want to bang it on your phone, you don't want to take up too much memory. MP3 is the way to go, but never submit an MP3 file for assessment, and never use an MP3 file to try and do post-production sound design to picture. Okay, we've got different modes. Now the offline mode, that will just offline it. It'll write it really quite quickly. And that's a kind of low grade mode. Although the quality is pretty good, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. But when it comes to final render, you click on real time. And for your final render, when you know it's the last thing you're going to do, I'm not going to do this because I'll be sat here for 10 minutes, is bounce second cycle pass. What that means, it plays it back in real time, making a note of all the changes, all of the mixing, all of the automation, and it doesn't actually start rendering the track until it's going around for the second time, and that's the highest quality you can get. I'm going to do it real time, but I'm not going to bounce second cycle pass. But if I was doing this for assessment, I'd be clicking that. Real time, just plays and writes in real time. So however long the film is, if it's a 10-minute film, it'll take 20 minutes. It'll take 10 minutes, I beg your pardon, to bounce that track down. Whereas in offline, it would probably take 30 seconds. For bounce second cycle pass, a 10-minute film will take 20 minutes, plus bits and pieces. So it's important, particularly when you're dealing with deadlines, to make sure you've got plenty of time to be bouncing this stuff down. Okay, so file format is AIF. It could be AIF or WAV, not CAF, but WAV or AIF. It makes no difference. PCs are WAV, Macs are AIF. PCs will read AIFs, Macs will read WAVs. So, but because this is an Apple-based format, AIF. Resolution, we always work in 24-bit, so let's stick with that. Sample rate, of course, because it's sound to picture, is 48. If it was a sound-only piece, then you would select 44.1, but it's not, so it's 48. Now, if you've made the mistake and you've done your whole design but in error at 44.1, things are not as desperate as they may seem. You can still bounce it at 48 and it will be a 48 design and it should all be still in sync. But if you've been cool and listened to what I've said, then all of your files and all of your projects should be 48, and so you sample rate at 48. The reverse is also true. If you've worked in 48 for a sound-only piece, which plays back at 44.1 on any stream or whatever, then you can just select 44.1. File type interleaved, dithering none. Dithering only is basically upscaling for when you're working in 16-bit, so we don't have to worry about that, so I'm not going to bother telling you about it. If you're on iTunes, if you're doing the MP3, you can click add to music and it'll add that MP3 to your iTunes library. We're not going to need to do any of these things. So just to confirm, PCM, start 1111, end where the end is. As you see, it's 54 point something, which is about right there. Real time, include audio tail. I always click that. So that means if there's any reverbs or any sound that continues after it's stopped, so you might have a big reverb that kind of lingers beyond the point where you might be at the point where the file clips are finished, it'll still render those, and that's quite handy because you don't want it boo, you want it to go boo kind of thing. Normalize, I always have it at overload protection only, which means it'll lower the levels or compress the levels a little bit should your levels be too high. And once you've done that, you can click OK. Okay, so we're going to navigate. I'm going to navigate to my online tutorials. So you navigate to where you need to go. There we go. And I'm going to call it the door post. And I'm going to call it first final mix because we're going to be doing other mixes. There we go. And then bounce. And I was going to bounce in real time. What I will do is I'll fast forward this in Final Cut when we come to actually make this, when I come to actually render this film. Okay, now it's normalizing, and there it is. And if I move my file here, there it is, the door post final mix. So I can close that down. I can quit Logic Pro. It asks me to save, and I will save that. Okay, so I'm going to open up Final Cut, but this will be any platform that you want. Here's the film. Let's drag that down. Oops, let's select the whole film, shall we? There we go. Drag that down, plonk it on the timeline. There we go. Now I'm going to go to import media, and I'm going to go find it's on online tutorials. Here we go. And the door post first final mix. There we go. Import selected. And there it is. There we go. I'm just going to drag that down, put it right at the very beginning. Oh, it's got to render, because I'm using a different library, it's going to render this audio track. So I'll just wait for that to happen. It shouldn't take too long because it's just an audio track. And I'll fast forward over this bit. Okay, he's done that now. So put it on. Yeah, it's just said that. There we go. I just want to check at the very end, just check all the footsteps are in sync. If the footsteps are in sync at the end of the film, then the whole film can sync. Looking pretty good. There we have it. I think we can say that that's in sync. And that's ready to bounce. So I shall bounce it now. Export, master file, the door, adding sound design. I'm just going to relabel that. What did I call the whole thing? The door post first final mix. Okay. The post first final mix. There we go. Next, on render first final mix, and then there we go. Again, I'll fast forward this a little bit. It shouldn't take too long. And there it is. It's all done. And let's open it up. And there we have it. Again, do a final check. Oop. Fantastic. I'll post that online so you can have a little look at that. Okay, so that ends this class on bouncing. You won't have to import the sound into a sounder picture because your assessments don't involve sounder picture unless you choose to do one. If you choose to do this in the third year, you still won't have to do that because it'll be the editor that does that, but it doesn't harm knowing, does it? Okay, so well done. Have a try yourselves now, or have a cup of tea.